Welcome to the Fourth Branch program, the place for common sense. I'm glad you're here. If you're here for the first time, once again, welcome. This program, the Fourth Branch, we have three segments. The first segment happens at 10 a.m., in which we usually, well, for the foreseeable future anyway, we're going to be reading the morning report. In segment 2, we usually address a topic of importance, and in segment 3, we address some of the news, current news that have degree of importance. But the past few weeks, we have been combining segment 2 between segment 1 and segment 3. As such, we only have really 2 segments, which are much longer than usual. This segment, segment 3, we will take a quick look at, actually not a quick look, we will take a look at the aftermath. And of course, whenever you hear the word aftermath, you know that means there was something that happened that left behind some damage. And the very purpose of taking a look at the aftermath is so to assess the type of damages that have been done and how to fix, recover from, or simply start over. This is all the Fourth Branch program, in which we look at issues not the way that it's looked at, not just by doing commentaries about the issues, the topics, but also by looking at the consequences, the impact, the influence, and, if possible, a solution. My name is Mike Duchenne, MD for short. We will take a look at of the aftermath of the 2016 presidential election. Live from New York City at the top of the hour, every weekday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. The Fourth Branch presents discussions, debates, commentaries on social, political issues, current events, sports, entertainment, religion, education. Every Saturday at 10:30 a.m. for a full presentation on controversial issues such as abortion, homosexuality, war on blacks. Are Republicans dumber than Democrats? Information which might irritate you, make you cry, make you laugh, but above all, will make you smarter. Join us every time. It is the right thing to do. It is the only way to keep your sanity in chaos, hypocrisy, immorality, and deception. Welcome to Common Sense. When you are bombarded with information, as we cannot escape that, we are bombarded every day with information. Whether you go on the internet and you decide to simply read and not pay attention to anyone, you just cannot, because no matter where you turn, it's this title here, say Donald Trump said this, that person said that, other replied this and that. So you are bombarded on a regular basis, hourly, basis of information. In fact, if anything, we say you are drowned in information. But interestingly enough, this expression, deluge or drowning in information, often only applies to Democrat and independent, because Republicans do not have that problem. And I don't say that because there is no there for them. It's because Republicans are very narrow-minded. They only listen to information that corroborate, strengthen their beliefs, and as far as all other information, they completely discard that and they stay within their world. Nothing is matter. Now, what I just said is not speculation. It was proven not too long ago when it was MSNBC that held a town hall some part of in the Midwest, and the participants, the attendees, were, and you could tell that they genuinely have no idea what the Mueller report says. In fact, a particular lady said that, I thought the Mueller report exonerated the president. So when I say what I said, it's not out of the blue. It's not something I took out of a hat and just talking gibberish. Republicans in general, they are very narrow-minded, naive, gullible. They only take information from those individuals who create information for them, information that make them feel good about themselves, information that strengthen their beliefs, information that corroborate their belief, information that simply are positive for them. In fact, in my publication, I wrote extensively about that and said that Republican constituents want someone to always massage their fragile ego. That is bad. It's not a compliment. It is bad because it is a danger to our country that you have millions of people who are looking to be pleased, not to change behavior. That is a major problem. Now, no matter what you think about Democrats, as it's always the case, all groups, different groups of people who think differently, who challenge the status quo, who challenge certain behavior. That's why you see Nancy Pelosi has been having so much hard time, is because there is no one individual make the decision and everybody goes along with it. In the Republican circle, however, Mitch McConnell comes with something, everybody falls on line, nobody challenges him. And that's the reason the Republican Party is the way. Everybody falls in line, everybody goes along. Now, don't get me wrong, there are exceptions to that, but those exceptions are few in between. Really, you have just look at currently, the individual in the Republican Party, Amash, is the only one who, having read the Mueller report, say we can no longer stand beside the president and defending him. The only one. Yes, there every now and then you find an exception that there is someone. John McCain was one such individual who was Republican, but every now and then he challenged the. But in general, If you are looking for, and I always say it this way, do not waste time trying to make light of facts and evidence for. They're not interested in that. They're interested in individuals who can make them feel good. That's why they tune into Fox, they tune into network that only say things that they love to hear. For folks, they just fine with that. They're living in a different world. And it is a danger because ignorance is not good for any country. Actually, it's not good for anyone. But it looks like they very comfortable living in ignorance. Again, that's not me saying. They've proven it over and over and over again that they prefer to stay ignorant. Now, ignorance is something that we were all born into. No one was born a genius. No matter how smart you hear that someone has, even when they call someone a genius, that person was not born a genius. That person was born with the ability to grasp concept much easier, much faster than the rest of us. And because of that, that person is a genius. But wasn't born a genius. We were all born ignorant. But a few, only a few choose to do something about it. The rest, they okay with that. Now the Republican constituent, they find living in ignorance. One individual asked me, Republican, and usually that I conduct conversation, dialogue with my fellow Republican. I have a very high tolerance for people who don't know, but who are willing and open to learn. But I have very little patience for people who want to stick to and live in ignorance. As such, my antenna is always very high. I don't know. I have the ability to drop my antenna when it comes to those things. It's always high. I'm having a conversation with an individual, and if you show that you are ignorant in an aspect of a topic of a conversation, I will attempt to do some education. But if despite doing that, the individual knows that he or she has no interest in that, I move away and move along, because I don't have any patience for people who want to stay in ignorance. George Washington, it is far better to be alone than to be in bad company. I have adopted that principle. In fact, when we started this project, the forefront, that was the basis of the project. Far better to be alone than to be in bad company. So if I'm having a conversation with my fellow Republicans, and we're having a conversation, that doesn't mean you have to agree with my point of view, because that's the whole point of discussing and debating issues. That's not what I'm talking about. It is okay to have a different point of view. For instance, I can give you a very interesting and controversial abortion. Without going through the detail of why I believe it's hypocritical for Republicans to be on their horses going after abortion, but I'll say this. I personally am against abortion, but I personally would not go against anyone who find herself in a predicament in which the way out is an abortion. But Republican, you'll find that they have all kind of rationale to show that they so so many core values that they would not stand for that. And yet, when you look at the action day in, day out, labor is a great thing to have to claim. But you don't live the lives of people who have core values. And I can give you example after example. I've been doing that over and over, and that's the reason this program. I had a lot of people, by the way, which is interesting. Sometimes they hurt my feeling, but other times I say, "What do you want?" They all run away from me on Twitter, and the reason is because they cannot hear truth. They want people who tell them what they want to hear. Lie to them, they love it. But that's the reason I already have my mind preset that if I'm talking to one of the Republicans and they show that they are very rigid when it comes to sticking to ignorance, I move away from that individual. I was having a conversation with one of my fellow Republicans who asked the following question, verbatim: what wrong did Donald Trump do for people to want to impeach him? For the Democrats, rather, to want to impeach him. That question was asked on the heel of the Mueller report being released. Now, it's one thing to support an individual, right? It is one thing to support an individual. But it is a very different to defend that individual as if he's innocent. Donald Trump is no innocent man. We all know that. That's way before he was voted in office. He was a crook, a fraud, a scoundrel. The list goes on and on. He's vulgar. So for someone to ask that question, forget about the Mueller report for a moment. Michael Cohen is sitting in jail because Michael lied to Congress about campaign finance money, an activity that he performed on behalf of Donald Trump. So when someone asks the question, what wrong did Donald Trump do for Democrats to want to impeach him, the question is, huh? So I usually move away from those individuals. Now we debate about different aspects of a conversation. We may never get to an agreement, but we both advancing rationale that make logical sense. Republicans in general, now that's not for the constituent in particular, that's not totally their fault. Yes, they do bear some of the responsibility problem, but that's not totally their fault. They bombarded with one level of information that make them feel. They tune into folks, they listen to Sean Hannity, to Tucker Carlson, to Laura Ingraham, people who actually make them feel good. So they cannot break away from those chains of lie and deception in order to go and listen to something that would not make you feel good, but that would be good for you to become knowledgeable and to help advance the country. They cannot do that. It's almost as if they're prisoners of their own minds. It is no news for any nation that Fox is where people go to lie, Republican in particular. is where most of the individuals who have a large audience, that's all they do. They lie. Fox is not a news organization. Yes, it says Fox News. That was a scheme by Roger Ailes. And I already had documentary worth 6-8 hours worth of video in which I went through the birth of Fox and showed that what Roger Ailes had in mind. It was never about news. Roger Ailes was always about sensation, shock, and awe. News was always secondary. So the model stayed at Fox. There are only a couple of people at Fox who still to speaking the truth to their audience. It's Shep Smith. I believe there is this other gentleman. His name escaped now. People. But Fox, you go to Fox, you go to hear lies. That's all. That's why Donald Trump only goes to Fox. That's why all the Republicans want to talk to the audience who crave for lies, deception, but things that make them feel good, to strengthen their belief, to reinforce their belief, to corroborate their belief. They all go on Fox. Why do you think they do that? Because they don't want to go to other media, to other network where they would be challenged. So they go to the place where they feel comfortable. They're not going to be challenged. In fact, they give them the to the audience. Now, while this is good for Fox because it keeps a large audience, which means they can continue to charge advertisers huge amount of money, so that's good for business. But for the country, for future generation, that's a disaster. That's how you can bring down the democracy in any country. Amplifying the audience. Now, the Republicans are doing that. All the Republican legislators, that's what they do for a living. So they go to Fox, they amplify the message. As you can see, Bill Barr has been going to Fox as well to make his point. An attorney general whose job is for the country, but instead has turned himself into Donald Trump's personal attorney. Now, to the Republican, that's great news. But to the country, that's a tragedy. Because every time you have a situation like this, it's never good for the freedom. It's never good for freedom. But what makes it even more troubling is the fact that America in general, Republican in particular, just for some reason they cannot learn. And they're not learn. It's not because they're not able to learn, it's because they prefer not to learn. That's why they stick with network that lie to them, that tell them things that they want to hear, knowing it's false, but that's all they want. Why do I care? Well, a good question, but the answer is actually very simple. You see, if my neighbor next door engages in something that do not impact me in any way, which means the neighbor is doing whatever he or she is doing inside his or her home, whatever it is, however bad it is, I couldn't care less. For instance, I'll take the example that been really one of the greatest examples used whenever we're talking about how Republicans always claim they don't want government involved in their lives, and yet every time they have the level of government, they have an opportunity, the first thing that they do is try to get involved in other people's lives. Ironic, isn't it? If my neighbor next door is homosexual or lesbian, how does that impact me? How does that affect me? Doesn't. So I don't care. But if my neighbor next door is doing something that affects my life in some way, for instance, banging, playing music, yelling, screaming, doing thing that doesn't just stay where he or she is, but rather influences the rest of the neighborhood, then automatically it becomes a problem for me. So I cannot not say anything. As such, when Republican constituent decide to live in ignorance, that impacts my life. How, you ask? Ignorance is the biggest threat to any democracy. Which means the ignorance, FK say that, the ignorance of one voter, the ignorance of the ignorance of one voter in a democracy impairs the security of us all. One voter ignorance, the rest of us in jeopardy. One voter. So imagine millions. So yes, the ignorance in the Republican Party, whether it's willful ignorance or forced or whatever attribute can be used to qualify the ignorance, it bothers me, because when I ask the question, what wrong did Donald Trump do for Democrats to call for his impeachment, then automatically we know we have a problem. It is well detailed in the Mueller report that Donald Trump has himself, you heard it, not someone telling you, you heard it with your own ears during the presidential election, him soliciting help from a foreign entity. And it so happened, according to the Mueller report, it wasn't just something he was saying. He knew something to Russia. So we learned from the Mueller report what Donald Trump was up to. Now, your Republican legislator, just like us, they love saying things for you to support them. Now, talking about Mueller report, I invite you every morning at 10 a.m. we do the reading of the Mueller report. Of course, portion of the report. We've been doing that. So if you want to hear the Mueller report, or portion we have already read, I strongly encourage you to visit the People Branch YouTube channel. This is where we have all our past video archive. So very strongly encourage you to. And in the future, every weekday at 10 a.m. we read the Mueller report. At 10 a.m. sharp, every morning, weekday, we read the Mueller report. And when we read the Mueller report, we only read the Mueller report. We do not comment on it. We do not no subtract. We tell you exactly what we're reading, and if there is a redaction, we tell you where the redaction is. So we just read the Mueller report. So I strongly encourage you to either read the Mueller report for yourself, or if I'm in the morning, because usually it's a 30 minutes affair, then you can watch this program at 10 o'clock every weekday, in which we will read the Mueller report. Now, again, as I just mentioned, if you're interested in reading, then you can always visit the People Branch YouTube channel, and you can search for reading of Mueller report or Mueller report reading. Use those titles and find that. And while you're there, I really encourage you to subscribe to that channel so that we can continue to send you invite, update, and even let you know the activity engaged in. So we'll be right back. Ignorance, they say, is the biggest threat to any democracy. Indeed, it is. Plato, a Greek philosopher born in 427 BC, said that ignorance is the root and stem of all evil. Today, members in the Republican Party wear ignorance as a badge of honor, while the rest of the country watch powerless. The destruction of a country was once the envy of the world. The media is the enemy of the country, said Donald Trump. The Democrat legislators are obstructionists for not going along with everything the president wants. The Department of Justice is biased for investigating corruption in the Trump administration. This is the United States of America. Any question? Well, reason it is important for the Republican constituent to wake up. You're not going to get any guidance from your Republican representative. They're not interested in guiding you. They already made that crystal clear. You're not going to get any truth from Fox. They're not interested in that either. Their goal, their objective, is to make as much money as possible, and they can only make that as long as you, the audience, stay ignorant. They make the money. Why do you think somebody like Sean Hannity, who doesn't have anything of substance, is the top guy at Fox? Ask yourself that question. People like Tucker Carlson, Laura Ingraham, the kind of thing that they say would not be acceptable in any normal organization, news organization. And yet at Fox they're striving. Why is that? Now here at the Fox, we do not, and we don't wish to associate with any organization, whether it's Democrat or Republican. I don't know beyond my life, but as long as I'm alive and I'm the host of this program, it will not get into any kind of sort of agreement or partnership with any organization that would want to shape the objective that we have, which is to perfect the union. And the only way we can do that is by removing ignorance, and that means bashing both sides. Bashing, I don't mean that literally, but holding both sides, both major political parties accountable. So we will do. The come across different from other network organization that might have the same idea is because in general news organizations are supposed to simply report the news. Even places where commentaries are done, the idea is to simply of non-bias is to bring people from the two major political parties that have different point of view to talk about the topic, so that it sounds like, yeah, we heard both sides of the argument. In our case, we go beyond that. We actually tell you what the logical prism. If you can pass through the logical prism, we present that to you, we discuss it, we debate it, and we try as much as possible, at least if there is the possibility of a solution, to bring the solution. Now, as we mentioned before, we are not under any illusion that whatever we see as a solution is the ultimate solution, is the only solution, or is the best solution. It is only a step to a solution. Now, what that means is we're hoping that whoever is in a position to implement those either solution we propose or come up with a different or a better solution, so be it, because the goal is not to force our solution into anyone, but rather to present a solution. As it stands today, Republican constituent, Donald Trump has done the greatest damage to our nation. He had collaborated with a foreign enemy. Now, I'll put it in a different way. Even if Donald Trump did not win the 2016 election, it would have been bad for any American citizen to have done what he did. But what makes it worse is the fact that, let's assume for sake of argument, Donald Trump did solicit help from Russia because he was so eager, he wanted so much to win. So he from a foreign entity. That's bad. That's very bad. But once he became president, then he cut all ties so that he can do what he believed would be good for the nation. You would say, okay, not that it would be condoned, but at least you could say he really had something for country, because he really had the country in mind. But as we can all witness, that's not the case. So it is painful to watch Republicans. Now, you will always have people who stand behind a bad individual. Always. Look at any dictator you want, past and present. they always have a lot of people behind them. So it's not any different for Donald Trump. In fact, one of the people most that is regarded in the 21st century as the most cruel dictator who would live on the face of this earth was Adolf Hitler, because of the level of atrocities he inflicted on many different people, including the Jews. Do you think that Adolf Hitler had a popularity that Donald Trump can only dream of? So how does that happen? How did that happen? That you have someone like that today you're looking at it and you say, gosh, that guy was a monster. And yet he had popularity. According to history, Adolf Hitler's popularity was higher than 90%. I'm talking about whole Germany. That's unprecedented for a leader. That doesn't happen. I don't think that has ever replicated in the history of the world. In fact, if you're a religious person, I can tell you, not even Jesus had that kind of popularity. So, how in the world you can have a bad individual, a monster, such popularity? Of course, there are plenty of reasons behind it. So the fact that you are behind Donald Trump doesn't make Donald Trump a good person. Donald Trump is a fraud, is a crook, is a liar. What I never could comprehend, being a student of history in general, how in the world people can manage to, and those are not necessarily stupid people. Some of those people went to college. They have great education. How do you, as an educated person, decide to support such a bad individual? How does that happen? I just cannot come with the logic to understand that yet. Of course, I'm cut with a different cloth. Because me, I can only be with someone as long as you're standing straight. I kind of take that from, I guess, Abraham Lincoln. Maybe I'm related to him. Who knows? Maybe I should go to .com to find that out. Because I simply cannot see myself standing supporting an individual, finding out that that individual has done something terrible to the nation, and continue to support that individual. I cannot see that happen. But for those, because I heard it before, and I'll mention it before someone pointed out again, I probably was the first one, beside his family and close friends, who actually encouraged the candidacy of Donald Trump when he did the announcement that he was running for president. Yes, you heard correctly. Even those people today that's so gung-ho about supporting him, they stayed away from him. Donald Trump was a joke. You may not remember that, but everybody know Donald Trump was a joke. They took Donald Trump seriously because they couldn't see that clown becoming president of the United States. And yet, what I just said, it's verifiable. Everything that I mentioned to you here, I also publish. So you can find my writing on the peoplebranch.org. and you can search for Donald Trump, and you'll find that very early on I wrote and encouraged the candidacy of Donald Trump. It would be good for the country. So it's not because I can see, I can rationalize in different time what is the country without having to be a fanatic. So I encourage it. I even defended Donald Trump when all the Republicans on the stage were ganging up against him. But it was also very obvious to me that Donald Trump should not be the president of the United States, because he does not have he is incompetent. He does not have the intelligence to be a president, and worse, he's very vulgar person. He's a fraud. He doesn't fit the criteria of a president. So as much as I was supporting his candidacy, I also against him becoming the nominee of the Republican Party. The question is, are you a patriot? Because that's what patriots do. You only stand with what is right and move away from it when it is not. You cannot stand with someone who continues doing the wrong thing because of what? Is the country more important to you, or is Donald Trump more important? Is the country more important, or is your political party more important? Which has priority? As such, the fate of the nation is very murky, because we have a whole political party which doesn't seem to understand they are on the wrong track. They cannot even acknowledge that they did something wrong to the nation. They did something wrong to the country. Whether you willingly participated in what Russia did to America, unknowingly, but it remains that you, Republicans, participated in Russia really damage, if not destroy, our system of government. Now it's understandable that you may not have known that you were helping Russia. As I mentioned earlier in the previous segment, that you see even in the Mueller report, there are found out that there were people who actually helped Russia a lot, really continuously passing the disparaging messages that Russia putting out there against Hillary Clinton. So those people posting on their Facebook page around, and then he goes around, and at the time that was said and done, more than 122 million people were in that loop, Russian loop, if we should call it. So it's understandable that you may not have even known that you were doing that, but there were a lot of people who did know that they were doing that. Donald Trump Jr., Paul Manafort, Gates. I mean, there were a number of people who were very well aware that they were helping Donald Trump. So those people don't have any excuse. But you had an excuse for not knowing, but you don't have an excuse for continuing to support that individual. Because if someone does something so bad to the nation, you cannot want have to continue to provide your support to that individual. Because yes, you may not know when you were supporting him via all the effort you were making and you were helping Russia doing that. Okay, you get a pass for that. Now you know. It's one thing you don't know that something can or will happen, but once you become aware of it, now it becomes your responsibility to avoid it. And if you continue to do so, then now you bear all the responsibilities. Our nation was under attack in 2016. Do you know it is the first time in the history of the United States that we have in the Oval Office an individual who doesn't give a hoot about the security of the nation? Do you know that? Now he talks all kind of crap what he's doing. But the very country that has damaged our system of government, Donald Trump seemed to be okay with that. In fact, he's been calling it a hoax. How about that for someone who claimed to love the country? It is time you stop talking and stop acting. The Bible says that words without action are worthless. And say all you want, you're a patriot, but that doesn't make you one. A patriot is someone who, at the sacrifice, even actually up to the sacrifice of his or her own life, to defend the nation. Which sacrifice are you willing to make in order to defend the nation? If you are a patriot, you cannot not be afraid, because this is not a matter of being Democrat or being Republican, because the very reason that our democracy survives is because of that very structure of our government. The men don't have any oversight, then at that point the idea of democracy in the United States of America ceases to exist. So if you are a Republican and you think, then you too are no patriot. There is no other word of saying it. No matter what you hear people saying, trying to sugarcoat, trying to go around to explain it to you, that's all it means. If you are okay is currently going on with Donald Trump, with the Republican Party, you categorically are not a patriot. And no matter what you think of yourself, you are not a patriot. Because someone who would give up, who would make sacrifice sometimes of his or her own life, let alone sacrifice a political party in order to preserve the democracy, in order to preserve the Constitution, to preserve the rule of law. So if you cannot do that, don't talk to anyone about being patriot, because you are no patriot. In 1996, a small network by the name of Fox was launched with just 17 million viewers. Today, with over 100 million people watching regularly, Fox has become the greatest threat to our democracy. Controlling the airwaves with false information, distortion of facts, and outright lies presented to its audience as news. Fox has created an army of blissful ignorance. According to a survey, 82% of Fox viewers are ignorant of facts and the truth. To keep millions of people in ignorance not only prevents democracy from flourishing, but it also clears the path to authoritarianism, to dictatorship. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Nothing in all the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity." Let me finish by saying that democracy cannot survive in an environment where truth and facts do not matter. At Fox, truth and facts do not matter. Indeed, democracy in America is in jeopardy. It is a crisis the country can no longer ignore. I hope this was of some importance to you. If not, you already know what to do. Send us comments, criticism, suggestion. Let us know how we can do it better. Should you have a topic you would like us to talk about, let us know. We will research and we will debate it right here on the Fourth Branch program, the place for common sense. Join us again tomorrow at 10 when we begin. Go back to read the portion of the report. In the meantime, I hope you have a wonderful afternoon. Thanks for watching. See you next time. That was an update, Prism of Common Sense. Join us again tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. for a full presentation. I am MD, host of the Fourth Branch program, the place for common sense. Criticism, suggestion, or simply let us know how we're doing. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful afternoon. See you next time. The Fourth Branch podcast is brought to you in collaboration with People Branch publication, which can be found on the People Branch website, located at peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org website, in which you will find a number of very interesting articles. My name is Mike Duchesne, MD for short. I hope you have a great afternoon or a great evening, whichever it happens to be. Hopefully you can join me again next time for another interesting episode of this podcast. That was the Fourth Branch, live from New York. Good day.